welcome back to another episode of Fox West Texas Sports Unscripted. I'm your host, Casey Buscher, now joined by ESPN's Lindsey Thiry. Thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Casey.
So it's been a weird time with no sports, but you have been so busy still with meetings and keeping up with teams and everything that's going on in the off season, even if it might be a longer one. So what's this time been like for you as a reporter?
You know, it's been really wild. It's flown by because the NFL decided to proceed business as usual. We went through free agency in the NFL draft. Now it's like teams are kind of having their what would be typical availability, only it's on Zoom. So we're daily on video conferences with coaches or coordinators and players, and still writing articles and still showing everyone the in-home studio, that for all the videos that we shoot for ESPN.com. But it's actually been really busy, which has been a really nice distraction.
So you've been in the LA market for some time. And so what's that kind of like as a reporter to have that same beat, for so many years, not so many years, but you know what I'm saying.
It's okay. It's okay. It's been a long time. I've been here a long time.
But that's a plus for a reporter, right? You get to know these coaches and players and build relationships with them. You know what's going on. So how is that for you?
Yeah, so it's been great. So I had no idea that I was going to eventually land in LA, so to speak. I've been out here since 2012. First covered USC for many, many years, and then I've been covering the Rams since they returned in 2016. So it's been great to not only build relationships with the Rams over the last 4 seasons, 5 seasons if I can do math, 4 seasons. Math is not my strong suit. But also just to have the familiarity in Los Angeles, because you overlap with so many reporters or different PR people. And then you also like players. So players who I covered at SC are suddenly with the Rams. So that's been really cool too. So to kind of be in one location for a long time as a beat reporter, it's beneficial just from the relationship standpoint. It's been great.
And just being in the LA market, it's so big and there is a lot of teams, and you are mainly with the Rams usually, but to be in such a big market, what is that kind of like media availability wise? Because maybe for some people who are in Ohio or a little bit smaller of markets, it's a little bit different. So what is that like for media from a media standpoint?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, especially just as the NFL really tries to get going in LA. When I covered USC, it was crazy. It was like Lane Kiffin. They were ranked number 1 that 2012 season and finished 7-6. So it was like to see that was a huge scale. There were so many reporters every day. It's been a little bit different with the Rams. There's fewer beat reporters daily, and a lot of it probably just has to do with geography. The Rams are really kind of located a long ways outside Los Angeles, where like the Dodgers and the Lakers are. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, it's been a little bit different. And I know that some reporters who cover teams in smaller markets come and they're like, wow, like we thought there'd be more media.
Yeah.
But it's like the Lakers and the Dodgers are really kind of the kings of Los Angeles, so to speak. So the media presence around the NFL teams hasn't been maybe what you'd expect, but it's definitely growing as the seasons go by.
And so because you have been in LA, what was it kind of like starting out for you along your journey? What was that first opportunity for you after you went to school at Washington?
Yeah, it's been a long haul. So I was an intern at Fox Sports Northwest. And from there, I went while living in my parents' basement after college, was sending out demo reels. And the first phone call I got back, I was like at a point where I'd been sending out reels for a couple months, and I was like getting very down about not getting any calls. I got a random call, I'll never forget, looking down and be like, Great Falls, Montana, what's that? Anyway, I got a call from Great Falls, Montana, and went out and worked for the local ABC affiliate there. So I was a sports and news reporter, and then worked my way up as a weekend anchor, and then worked into like being the weeknight sports anchor. And spent a year and almost 2 years there before I moved from there to Atlanta. But I wouldn't trade that small market experience for anything. It was so great to learn how to do everything on my own, and to learn how to shoot and write and run your prompter and set up your own one-man band shot. Like it weren't for that experience, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today.
Well, what a big jump. You go to Atlanta. I mean, what was that like? Did you feel ready for that next step?
Yeah, it was different. So, I mean, the crazy part is, so I went from like working for the local news to I was a team reporter for the Falcons. So it was great just because it was, you know, everyone at the Falcons was super, super welcoming, and it really was like a high pressure job by any means. Like, it was being a team reporter. So it's, you know, you have access to the players. You don't kind of have to fight to get access, or kind of some of the stuff like it's a little bit trickier. But it was a little bit like, okay, like you can't mess up. You're in Atlanta now. So there was more pressure, but it was like also a situation where like, if you messed up, they could kind of reshoot it. So no pressure at all.
So what was that? Would you say Atlanta was kind of like that big break for you and a pivotal moment just in your career to keep climbing?
You know, I don't think so. So I was with the Falcons for a season, and then it was like a seasonal job. And so at the same time, I was doing sidelines for like Georgia Public Broadcasting, which was a great experience. High school football is huge there. So they had all the high school football games. I was doing that. But that wasn't going to be enough to like pay the rent in Atlanta. After the Falcons job was over for the season, like, of course they said you can come back next season, but I was like, well, I don't know what to do in the middle. So I actually moved back home to Seattle, went back to my parents' basement, was sending out stuff again. And then I got a call from what was Scout.com, owned by Fox Sports at the time. And they offered me the job in Los Angeles. So that was kind of like, you know, I'm a West Coast person, like get down to LA and just get grinding. And I've just been grinding ever since to get where I am.
That's incredible. So, so I read that you won the national championship in 2005. You played volleyball at Washington.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I'm on the bench. I mean, I'm really like a minimal rolled the bench, but like I worked really hard in practice.
That's amazing. Hey, you made like the starters winner, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I made the team, so that was good. Yeah,
exactly.
All my teammates went on to play in the Olympics, so like proud of them to this day.
No, but just like to be a college athlete, that's so big, and speaks volumes to you probably always loving sports your whole life. So what made you want to take this career on? Is it because you've always loved sports and been around sports and was a college athlete? Yeah,
so as a kid, I loved watching the news. Like I watched all the local news stations. I'll always remember this like moment in high school. Every day, one of our teachers would ask me, called it the daily quarter question, and it would be random trivia. And one day he said, "Hey, who can name the 3 nightly news anchors on the world news programs?" And I raised my hand so fast, and I looked around like, how does nobody else know this? And I realized, like, am I the only dork out here watching the news every night? So I always loved the news, and then played sports my whole life. My older sister played sports. My dad was like the coach of my brother's, you know, T-ball, little league team and everything. So I've just always been around sports, and I remember watching like the wide world of sports, and like every, you know, couple of years when the Olympics would come up, I loved like the human interest stories about all the Olympians. So it just was kind of became something I'm like, you know what, I want to do that as a career, and it kind of worked out.
So in May 2018, you go to ESPN. So May 2018. So what was that kind of time like, getting that call from Scout.com and then now being here?
Yeah, so in between Scout and ESPN, there was like a couple others. Like I also worked for Fox Sports West, and then the LA Times. This is probably like the most crucial part of like my career that I always kind of emphasize to younger people is, you know, you kind of have this like path in mind, how you're going to get to where you want to go. And mine went nothing like that. So after Scout, the LA Times said, hey, like, you know, we see you know how to do this digital video stuff. Do you want to come do that for us? And I was like, LA Times, like, I need to work for a newspaper. I don't know how to do all that. I don't know how to write. And they're like, no, we can help you with that. Like, we see some potential here. So I took that, and that was like really scary to work. I mean, an amazing brand, an amazing paper, an amazing sports department. But like, why do they want me? But I kind of took that risk and did it. And because I did that, ESPN, I kind of got on their radar with some of my reporting and some of my writing and the ability to like be on camera. And so I got that call from them. And then the other part that I'd love to add to that story, because this is such a hard business, and I think it's important for people to know, like, it's not always like glamorous and easy.
Yeah.
It's just like a month before ESPN called me, I had an agent at the time at a big agency, and he had called after the first of the year and was like, hey, like, I just can't really find any jobs for you. Like, no one really seems to be that into you. And he was like, and our contract with you is coming up, so we're going to end the relationship. I was like, oh my God, like, Happy New Year. Like,
oh my God.
Like, I'm getting dumped by my agent. And then a month later, ESPN called, so kind of worked out.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah, so like, just when you think, like, I'm not going anywhere, this couldn't get any worse, you just, like, never know who's out there, like, watching your work and keeping track of what you're doing.
Yeah. Some of the best advice I've ever got is, like, not get too low when you get a bunch of no's, and then not get too high when you get, when you're on kind of the uphill of the journey.
Yeah. And you know what? For a minute, I was getting a little too high because I'd been hired at FS1, and FS1 was taking off. And then I had this cool agent from, like, this flashy agency, and I thought, yes, like, this is it. Like, this is going to go now. And then it was just like, and then after the new year, it, like, crashed. But so happy that ESPN called when they did.
So what's it been like since, working at ESPN is kind of like a dream for a lot of people that want to go into the industry. So when you got that call from ESPN, where you're like, okay, I made it, I feel good, and, like, this is what I've been working for
FS1. It was, like, surreal for a little bit, like, to get the call, to go through the interview process. I'll just, like, never ever forget, that flight to Bristol to meet with everybody and talk with everybody. But I have to tell you, like, since I've been at ESPN, it has been, and I'm not just saying this because maybe my bosses are watching, it has been an awesome company to work for. The amount of just, like, support that they give you, the amount of just from the TV side to the writing side, the editors to the producers, it's just been fantastic. And you do feel the pressure to perform and to deliver, because it's the worldwide leader, and you want to be breaking stories, and you want to be able to, like, hold up your end of the bargain to work for ESPN. But it's been awesome, and it keeps you busy, and they keep you on your toes, but it all really, like, feels worth it. All the work that took to get here, like 10 years in the industry of just grinding and grinding and grinding. Yeah. And the grind doesn't stop. You feel the pressure, work even harder, but to work for a company that like, values your work this much is really awesome.
Absolutely. And so, just talking in the NFL aspect now, so you cover the Rams, and you are covering some Chargers as well. What, you've been virtual for most of this time, throughout the few months, but what are some things you've just been noticing from those two teams?
I think just everybody's willingness and ability to adapt to what's going on. This is so against the nature of how the NFL works, in the sense of, like, those guys are normally at the facility all day long working, and the coaches are going over film together and going through meetings, and players are there, and even through the off season. So for those guys, like, for the players, to talk with them, and it's been really just kind of fun to see them in their living rooms, or, like, oh, hey, like, gotta go close the door, the kids are about to pop in. So it's been really, like, a humanizing situation for the players, for the coaches, for the reporters. So I think the coolest thing to see all through all this is, like, people are making the most of it and, like, rolling with the punches, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And so what did you think of the NFL draft as being all virtual? We kind of got to see them with their families more, and just, like, being in their home. Also very humanizing as well.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm like, can we just do it like this every year? I was sitting on my couch watching the NFL draft, like, writing, and then just hopping on the Zoom calls after guys were selected. But it was so cool, I thought, to be able to see these guys, these players, like, in their natural element with their family, because as cool as it is when they walk across the stage and you get to meet Roger Goodell and everything, there's something also to be said to see them, like, on their couch, and, like, just that pure emotion that comes out, that maybe sometimes you would kind of swallow that when you're about to go on stage and you're, like, truly, in front of a national audience, where it was just very, very, again, humanizing. And to see, the family, because normally they walk around the table, they hug everybody, and then they're, like, just rushed off. It was just really cool to see those moments, and how emotional it was for the players, for their families, for their friends, everybody who was in the room.
And just for you putting yourself in like the fan's shoes, what are some predictions that you see for this NFL season? Just with all the moves that have been made with Tom Brady to the Bucks and Gronk going there and a few deals being finalized with teams. What are some things you've been noticing?
How crazy is it that Tom Brady is in Tampa Bay? It's still weird to say it aloud. Obviously everyone's going to be watching the Bucks and to see like what Gronk does coming back. I'm equally interested in what happens in New England. I mean, Bill Belichick is such an amazing coach, and it's like, do you expect to fall off? Do you not expect to fall off? I know there's a lot of people who are saying there's no way it's going to be what it was without Tom Brady, but it's going to be really interesting to see what goes on out there. I know just in the division that I mostly cover, just being out in the NFC West, I'm super interested to see what happens out here with the 49ers and the Rams and the Seahawks, and then obviously the Cardinals with their addition, DeAndre Hopkins and Cliff Kingsbury kind of had them on the uptick last year and really scaring a couple good teams. So I just think this NFL season is going to be really exciting. I'm just excited for it to even kick off though. Like please let us have football and maybe a few fans in the stadium if we could.
Absolutely. And just what do you think that time's going to be like because NFL is like just like the American sport, I feel like.
Yeah.
So what do you think that time's going to be like just when the first game kicks off, or if fans are in the stadium or not, just like watching at home? What do you think that, community is going to feel like just to finally have football back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be so exciting, whether fans are there or not. Like I know in my neighborhood, when you can hear kind of the different neighbors. In Hermosa Beach, we all live like very much on top of each other. But you can hear like people watching different games and people cheering throughout the neighborhood. And like, somebody just scored a touchdown, whatever channel they're watching. So I think that's going to be really great for people. But I'm just like so excited for the prospect of like the players being back together, and everybody's kind of having an outlet to hopefully enjoy. Like that's what sports are here for, right? They're here for like entertainment, but also just to kind of provide a distraction to maybe some other like scarier things that are going on right now. So I just think it's going to be great if and when the NFL is able to kick off, and whether that has fans or not. Like I think it's going to be a huge bonding experience, whether they're in the stadium or at home watching with a couple friends, or maybe even in restaurants or in a bar if that's possible at the time. I think it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be incredible. And
for
you, I mean, how pumped are you for that new stadium?
I can't wait to see it. I'm just like so excited. So at the Coliseum, to get from the press box to the field, you have to like shimmy through fans. Like, so it's like a one-way stream, right? Fans are leaving the game and you're trying to like be a fish going against the stream to get down. And I'm just like so excited to have an elevator that just drops you. It's like the little things. It's the really little things.
Yeah.
But that stadium obviously is something they've been working for years on now. And they've put a lot of time, obviously a ton of money into it. I think it's going to be really, really awesome venue.
So Taylor Swift was supposed to.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, no Taylor Swift in it.
And I had tickets, and I was going to go.
Oh, wow.
Upset. Yeah. But I was actually at the Coliseum it was in December, Eagles came and played the Rams.
Yeah.
I was there for that game as a fan. But that was my first time in the Coliseum. Very historic. It's definitely
cool. It's a very historic, very cool venue. And, USC just put a lot of money into it to just kind of not bring it up to like, what SoFi is going to be, but to replace some seats and to just kind of, it's still a beautiful historic venue, but make it a little bit more modern and a little bit more functional for what we need today. So it's a cool place. It's not replaceable.
I totally agree with that. Okay, so I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So favorite sports book?
Oh my gosh, putting me on the spot. Oh, the Bullpen Gospels. Wait, is that the right name of it? It's a baseball book.
Ooh.
By a guy who came up through the minor leagues. I'm Googling this right now just to make sure. It's really good. It had me laughing out loud. Yeah, it's the Bullpen Gospels. Amazing. Give it a whirl.
Is it a true story?
It is, yeah.
Cool. Love that.
Oh, and Andre Agassi's autobiography was really good too.
Oh, okay.
I could have put that down, yeah.
Favorite sports documentary?
It has to be The Last Dance.
No, so good. Every time I ask, everyone's like The Last Dance. Like it was so good. What were your overall thoughts just on The Last Dance? The way that ESPN just could put all of his career into 10 document. It's just crazy. And
It
the
was
footage
pretty sad. It was the footage. I mean, it's like it's seeing the conversations that you normally don't get to see in a training room or just random. So I was like, how did they have a camera there for that moment? But also it was just like cool to hear and see Michael Jordan's face as he watched the different what am I trying to say? Like the different interviews on his iPad. And, like that was awesome too, just to like watch him and see how you react. I mean, just every part of that, every aspect of that series was really awesome, really well done.
So good. Favorite sports movie?
Probably Remember the Titans.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I like that one.
What's your favorite part of your job?
The people, like everybody from the players and coaches I cover to the awesome crew, our audio people, our camera people, my editors. I mean, it's all just like about the people.
What is one? It's going to be really hard probably for you to answer because you've done so many good ones. But your most favorite story that you've been able to tell?
Oh, that's a hard one. I know you said rapid fire. Gosh. And it's not because I have like a bajillion good ones. It's not like that at all. I would probably say, I did one last season. I really liked on Andrew Whitworth, the Rams left tackle. I was able to go out to Colorado and follow him and his kids around for a day. So I really liked that one because it was like about a player and his family. But I think kind of all the stories that led up to the Super Bowl that season, there were some features that I really liked. About different guys. So it's all about like the players and like who has great stories or is willing to at least share with you their great stories. So that's not super specific, sorry.
Oh, that's good though. That's really cool. And what's your favorite memory? Could be like the Super Bowl, whatever.
It has to be when I was an intern at Fox Sports Northwest. I grew up a Ken Griffey Jr. fan. Like it's not even close. Like that was the guy. And he was back on the Mariners when I was an intern. And a couple of the guys were like, oh, you're the new intern around here. Like, you should try and get an interview this summer. Like, maybe, like, I don't know, Griffey or something. And I was like, what? Like, I can't interview Ken Griffey Jr. And then he happened to walk around the corner, and he was like, are you talking about me? Like, you can't interview me? And before you know it, like, I interviewed him. He basically, like, once every couple homestands, he'd be like, hey, like, where's your mic? Like, come interview me. Because he knew I had to get a demo reel made. And so, like, basically, like, my guinea pig of interviewing was Ken Griffey Jr.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Imagine having that on your demo reel. Like,
yeah, it was cool. And I'm just like, when I go back, I mean, when I think of some of those interviews, I'm just like, how did he even, like, stump? I mean, it was just, like, bad. It was so bad. But he was there, and he's like, okay, what else you got for me? Like, what next time, let's talk about this topic. And it was fun. It was cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And what you're going to do after quarantine? First thing you're going to do?
Hopefully get married.
I know.
I was supposed to get married in June. We had to postpone our wedding, so we're just kind of like watching the news for updates. Like, when are weddings going to be safe and okay? Because I'm really excited to get married, and that was something I was looking forward to this off season.
Where were you going to do it at?
In Santa Barbara. So it's just north of LA, a couple hours.
So beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited for whenever you finally get to
Thanks.
It's so exciting. But I do know some couples who just did like smaller get-togethers and like got married. I just feel like for me, I'm not close to getting married at all, but like I would want like this big extravagant wedding.
Yeah.
So for me, I would want to wait.
It's kind of one of those things like people are like, you can just go to the courthouse. And like, yeah, except for like, I want my mom and dad there, and I want my fiance's mom and dad there. And I know it's like a marriage between us, but we've already been together for a few years. So it's like, we can wait a little while to do it the way we've always dreamt of doing it. But it's
absolutely. I would have been the same way. But I'm excited for you when it finally comes. It's going to make it that much sweeter, I feel like.
Thanks. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, so for people that don't know, so obviously ESPN's headquarters is in Bristol. They have, the New York City studio now, kind of a DC one now, I guess, or they've always had one, I don't know. But you're in LA, so you are always out in the field. So kind of what does that look like? Do you have, a production truck? Because people see you and they're like, all right, she has microphone, cameraman, all the above.
Yeah.
How does that come to life?
It's wild. So like I said, the best thing I did for my career was go to Great Falls, Montana and learn how to be a one-man band. Because Sometimes I have a production crew. So that looks like a camera person, a producer, and an audio person, which I'm telling you is such a luxury. Like when you're used to being a one-man band and then suddenly you arrive and you're like, oh, you're a producer that's going to help. And oh, like you're a camera person. Like, and then you're like, what's this other person? You're like, oh, we're here to like boom your audio. And you're like, what do I do? They're like, you just report. And it's like, this is so easy.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what it looks like on some days. Like they'll all be out at the team facility with me. Like I hardly ever go to the to ESPN's studios in Los Angeles. Like my day-to-day is going to the Rams team facility. And then on days when I don't have a crew, it is me, my tripod. Here it is. This is like a cell phone that we broadcast straight to ESPN. It can go live. And I have a mic that I plug in, and you literally put it on a tripod like a one-man band, and you film yourself. And that's a lot of the times what you'll see on SportsCenter. So it just kind of depends, like how big are we expecting the story to be for that week, and what is important that week in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's how they kind of decide, like, are you gonna have a crew, or can we just have you shoot like one stand-up on your phone? Yeah. So I always have a backpack, and it always has a computer, all my audio, like my mic and my cell phone and a tripod, and I look like a little bit of a bag lady with all my bags of gear. Mm-hmm. But luckily, like a lot of times also they'll send a crew. But it's very much like, you do your own makeup, you do your own hair, you do all that stuff versus like in studio, they'll do all that for you. But out in the field, you're kind of responsible for making sure you have a lot of your own ducks in a row.
And for you, whenever it comes to stories, which is a big part of your job is storytelling, you're used to this team, you've been covering it in terms of the Rams. How does it go with, you finding stories and you getting interviews and things like that? Are you pitching stories to ESPN saying, hey, like I know this, or do they give it to you usually? What is that like?
Yeah, no, it's you pitching. Once in a while they'll say, hey, we maybe when your editors will be watching a game at home. Mm-hmm. Like this happened a couple years ago. They were watching the game at home, and Jared Goff starts yelling, Halle Berry, like an audible, and the mics picked it up. And before you know, I'm getting texts from our TV producers and my editors, like, why was Goff yelling Halle Berry? And I'm like, I didn't hear it. And so, suddenly you're chasing that story. But most of the time, it's, based on just kind of, what's going on with the team, or even, going into the locker room. You have 45 minutes in the locker room every day. And it's really on you as a reporter to create relationships and foster relationships and just chat with the guys and find out what's going on and find out about, their lives, what they're into outside of football, why they got into football, and just try and foster relationships that kind of lend themselves to creating interesting stories. But it's really on the reporter to be able to come up with that and generate that. And once in a while you get told, hey, can you follow up on this, or can you look into this? But really, it's your own, creative power to come up with that.
I feel like a lot of times people don't realize that, that sometimes you are setting up your own tripod and, putting up your camera, shooting your own stand-up. But that makes you that more, marketable as a reporter if you know how to do all of those things.
100%. And, that's the biggest thing in all of this is, you're never at a place where you shouldn't. And in this day and age, everybody should know how to set up a tripod and set up a cell phone to record themselves. Because you can need to look at the situation we're in right now with the whole pandemic. Everybody is shooting from home. So it's if you already know how to do that, great, you're already ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. If you can frame yourself in a shot, you're framed beautifully. Yeah. It just makes everything look that much better, and it's that much easier. And frankly, it's just bosses and people who are hiring love to see that, because it's just one more thing they can check off the box that you're versatile and you're willing to kind of go that extra step.
So you've had such a great career so far. You're in LA, you're covering the Rams, the Chargers, you're at ESPN, but I'm sure we spoke a little bit about this. There has been, bumps along the road, but overall, you made it to this point. But for you, what have been some challenges that you've had to overcome?
I really just think so much of it has been the subjective nature of this entire industry. I mean, it can be really subjective. I've had the challenges of working for a couple of people along the way that weren't necessarily encouraging or uplifting, who didn't maybe have constructive criticism. It was just more so like, you're probably not pretty enough to do that, or you might not be talented enough to make it that far. So I think really just kind of the biggest challenge is like maintaining confidence in yourself. Because like there can be times like I said earlier, when you feel like, okay, I'm on a really good path, but then something happens for whatever reason, and people don't like your new demo reel, or you don't get that next bump up. So I just think the biggest challenge is maintaining confidence in yourself. And there's going to be peaks and valleys, and you just got to try and even them out a little bit and keep plowing away. Because one of the things that I truly believe now is like you never know how close you are to your next goal. So like the last thing you want to do is like give up on yourself, because like with ESPN, like I had no idea they were out there watching. And I at the time was like, gosh, do I even want to be in this industry anymore? I felt like I just kind of hit a plateau with some of the stuff that I was doing for the Times, and obviously was dumped by my agent. I'm like, I don't know, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Because I'm probably not going to make that next step. So you just got to keep going.
I love that. That's great advice. Okay, so I have a few fan questions for you. So someone asked what the linebacking core looks like for the Rams this upcoming season, and who's going to fill Littleton's spots on the team now that he's gone.
Yeah, it's going to be a young linebacking core. So the Rams lost Corey Littleton in free agency. He was a great guy from the University of Washington, who obviously came up as an undrafted free agent. Always love to see those stories of guys who beat the odds there. But a lot of young guys, so whoever asked that question, it's like Micah Kaiser, Kenny Young, Traven Howard, Troy Reader. So it's an open competition. Whenever that competition could take place, maybe training camp, I don't know. So we'll see there. But I don't think there's any leaders in the clubhouse right now.
Someone asked what the offensive line is looking like for the Rams.
Yeah, so exciting for the Rams. Andrew Whitworth's coming back for like his bajillionth season. But he's like 36, 37?
Impressive. Yeah.
38? I need to look that up. His birthday's just come every year, right? But it's his 15th season in the NFL, which is an amazing accomplishment. So that's going to be big for them. Last year, because they went through so many injury issues, they had a lot of young players who came in. So I think like the interior of the line, we're going to see Rob Havenstein, who's a Wisconsin guy who earned a big contract with the Rams. He had a tough season last year and eventually was injured, but we'll see if he can come back at right tackle. So offensive line's a huge question for the Rams this year to see who's going to fill what spot, but they definitely have some pieces to play around with. And
how did you stay persistent and level-headed while trying to pursue your dream?
I think this is like a really humbling business, so it's like, you got to stay level-headed. And I've always been someone who's like maybe a little bit more of a self-doubter than I should be. Like deep down, I know I can do it, but there's like always this little tick that says like, that's not good enough. Like you gotta be better. You gotta be better. You gotta be better. So it's like, it's an internal drive to like always want to be better and never think that I'm good enough, because I legitimately never think that like what I'm producing is good enough. It's kind of an issue.
I feel that. I'm so with that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and stay healthy and try to make the most of quarantine. I think you're doing a great job by having a podcast. Hopefully it's all over before we know it.